Please state the name of your institution. Good morning, governors. Congratulations on this very important event. My name is Américo Martins from Brazil CNN, and I know that the elected president-elect is coming with to receive proposals from you. Could you talk about the content of this letter that you're going to give to him concerning the requests? We are finalizing this letter, but in essence, it will bring what all of us governors have been defending concerning the legal Amazon. We are going to talk about the importance of the legal Amazon within the environmental context of this country and also in the international scenario that we want to discuss in a different context concerning respect towards the Amazon and the the payment for environmental services, the trade relations that we have, and the valorization of the forest that we keep standing. So this letter will bring a proposal, not of a new vision, but a vision that may represent this new moment that Brazil is going to experience, and most of all, guaranteeing respect towards the Amazon and all of us who live in that part of the country. So we want to preserve, and we want the Amazon people, almost 30 million Brazilians who live in that part of the country, can have the right to go on growing, developing, and building their families and their future. And besides what Mauro said, we are going to approve the letter today at the end of the afternoon or tomorrow morning with this final content. And what's key is that we can firstly put the subnational governance as an ally of the federal government in this social and sustainable agenda. And this agenda must be an agenda of commitment in reducing emissions, but we also must build economic solutions for the Amazon and Brazil. Therefore, this conciliation must be the decisive point so that we can deliver the commitments that are a responsibility of Brazil and the states in concerning the emission reduction and the transition into this new model of economic activity, which are low carbon economic models, so that we can have inspection, monitoring, and control, and a different pillar of the land regulation and environmental regulation so that we can have the economic pillar as well. And this economic pillar concerns the monetization of the standing forest and the reaffirmation that the state vocations must be connected to sustainability, but we shouldn't eliminate the context of the different vocations so that we can enable the balance in which we consider people, the economy, and the forest. Uh, we could have people at first, but we could have forest in second and economy in third, but we can change this order, but we must build a prosperous and sustainable future with people first. But Governor Elder, the great challenge of the states in Brazil is to keep producing food with environmental preservation. We have our own policies in different states. Tocantins has been taking care of the environment, and we are now a protagonist in the food production, and we are a new state. But we need partnerships so that we can foster the projects for the traditional communities, for the riverside communities in our state, and the populations which are vulnerable and need that. We have advanced projects like this Suez company that is interested in our product, and we are advancing in this discussion. So that's a light at the end of the tunnel. And this uh, carbon sale project is not easy. COP after COP, we couldn't find results. So we must have results so that the populations can grow and work in a sustainable way. I don't want to repeat the words of the of the other governors, but we are coming from a pandemic when the world stopped, and after the pandemic, what happened? The population wanted to work, looking forward to compensate the time wasted. So we are taking on new commitments, and the presence is a response itself. We are open for the debate to fulfill what we must fulfill, reducing the deforestation rates and so on. But we cannot leave this COP without putting in practice all the commitments. We must have finance, we must have resources to put in practice all the commitments that we took on. Acre is ready for that. We have this environmental policy that is working, and we want this tripod of generating jobs, taking care of people, and we must strengthen economy with sustainability. Thank you. My name is Cristiane Przybyski. I'm a journalist from site OECO and Climate Change Media Partnership. And my question is for Cameli and Mauro Mendes. Lula is coming with this environmental policy that is different from Bolsonaro's policy. Camelo and Mauro Mendes were supporters of Bolsonaro. And I want to know how you're going to balance the political agenda for the environment. First, I'd like to thank you for your question. The election is over, the campaign is over, and we have a state and a country that must come first. We have the environmental policies and we have the agribusiness policies. In my state, for instance, the new forest code is the answer. You must comply. What we cannot do is to forget that we have 26 million people from the state of uh, Amazonas, and I must have the standing forest. I left my office and I went to the different uh, indigenous villages to see how important the indigenous peoples are. So I visit them and I have this consciousness that we must maintain the forest standing and we can reinforce agribusiness with sustainability. I must generate jobs. I must feed the population of Acre. So we cannot have this discourse, this situation that automatically is interpreting me uh, as a, with this politicization. The President Lula is the president of the Brazilian people. He was elected and he must give responses. And I, as a governor, I am ready to do whatever is needed to help him. So besides being representatives of a people, we have a commitment, and I see politics this way. I'm the governor for all, the election is over, the campaign is over, and I'm ready to think about a better Brazil with less employment and sustainability. So that's what I think. We must preserve, we must generate income and employment with sustainability. When someone is elected for a public function, especially an executive function, the, what's important is the constitution, the legality, and Brazilian laws. In our constitution, we have the Forest Code that was approved 10 years ago. That is one of the most protectionist environmental laws in the planet. If we if we have that as our framework, my dialogue is going to be framed by the with my dialogue with the President Lula will be supported by this code. As a governor in my state, I've been complying to the forest code in minimal details, and that's how we're going to establish the dialogue with the federal government. The election is over. 15 mayors supported me in this election, and I was supported by 140 mayors, and I hope that the President Lula will have the support of all the mayors governing for all and not for only for those who elected him. Good morning, Governors. Daniel Nardim from Grupo Liberal at Belém. My question is concerning the letter to President Lula. Are you going to mention infrastructure works? Because every time we talk about infrastructure, we also talk about the environment. So will you talk about that? President Lula has been signaling that in the beginning of his administration, he will call all the 27 governors to talk about this new federative relation, and then we are going to discuss reactivating what was called in the past as this program for accelerating growth. So we are going to have the opportunity to talk about the structuring works for different states and also for regional impact. At this moment, the letter is exclusively on the model of conception and the commitment of the subnational administrations concerning the concept for the Amazon, conciliating what was reported with the tripod people, forest, and economy. Tasso Loran, I'm a journalist from the Metropolis newspaper. I'd like you to get into details on how we can conciliate sustainable development and the economic issues you've been highlighting. The best way of detailing that is knowing what we do in Mato Grosso and the Amazon states do with the agribusiness. The sustainable development is being a great producer of food, preserving 62% of your territory. You will hardly find that in any other region of the planet, any subnational state that is producing so much food as we produce in Mato Grosso, and we produce in other states in the Amazon region, and we have so much environment preservation. If there's a positive example in the world on preservation and production, this example is in the Amazon states, especially mine, which is the greatest state in terms of food production, and we have this great environment preservation. And I think it's key for to answer your question. First, that it's a fact that there still exist infractions and environmental crimes. And it's a fact that the institutions, either national or subnational, need to be reinforced. This is the pillar for strengthening the inspection activity and also monitoring and control. We must show to Brazil and the world that in our country, we do not accept illegal activities concerning the environment or any other activity, and that must be defended by all. The agribusiness in Mato Grosso must be the most interested in Brazil not committing environmental crimes because they are not consuming what they produce mostly. They are working for the external market. And if the external market is not able to understand that the production in Mato Grosso, Pará, Tocantins, or Acre are productions which are sustainable, that the traceability is guaranteeing that the origin of the product is legal, that will harm the international markets. And since we work in this global market, it's going to harm the local market as well. So this is a pillar that must be reinforced, and is the role of each state to structure their monitoring and control and inspection tools, and the federal government must structure as well, because we are talking about a region that it belongs to the federal jurisdiction. Consequently, the subnational states cannot enter to comply with the inspection. For instance, the state of Pará, 70% of Pará is in federal land, federal reserves, indigenous lands, quilombo lands, settling lands. So it's key to have this pillar. The second pillar is that we need to guarantee the land and environment regulation.
So we can assure rights and also ask for duties. Look at the institutional vacuum today of legality in the Amazon. Makes us think about the infractions, because we cannot identify who was responsible for the criminal acts towards the environment. When we give a title for a land to someone, we give them the rights, but we try also to identify who was responsible to fulfill the environmental duties. So we have to strengthen this pillar. We have to identify what is the federal territories and what is the state territories. And lastly, we have to talk about the models of economic development. The models of economic development in our region go through an extremely strong agribusiness. And when I talk about this, I mean grains, I talk about cattle farming as well. We have two states here that are among the largest cattle herds in Brazil. We didn't think about the logics of contribution of a region is Mato Grosso not being the biggest producer of food in Brazil to be a protagonist in the agenda of reforestation or something of this nature. We understand that it is possible to do both. My state has a lot to learn, for example, with Mato Grosso. I live in a state that has a territory that is 3 times the state of Paraná. And Paraná produces 10 times more than the state of Pará. I have to advance on my forest to be a protagonist on locations that are already established by Paraná. No, I have to leave the logics of ostensiveness to be more intensive. I have a conciliation to make. I want the standing forest, and that's why we are discussing here. We know how to deal with agribusiness. And those who are part of the agribusiness, they have environmental awareness. We can't think that those who defend illegal acts are the portrait of Brazilian agribusiness. There are very few irrational ones that are infiltrated in the collective. Brazil is a reference in agribusiness, and in order to be competitive in the international scenario, they have to be aware. But the standing forest, for us to be able to contain the advancement of deforestation, we have to guarantee that the standing forest's price has to be competitive. Today, the standing forest has 10% of the price, the market price of a crop. So we have to guarantee that the standing forest is part of the portfolio of the rural property. And we are discussing carbon credits. We are discussing biodiversity and consequently bioeconomy. We will discuss agroforest services, agroforest systems. We're going to conciliate livestock and agriculture and crops. And that's how we're going to get to the answer to your question. Good morning, governors. Ana Carolina Amaral for the newspaper Folha de São Paulo. I would like to understand what you expect from the conversation with President Lula on the redesign of this pact, on the what the states gained from the partnerships with the international players. I'm going to try to give you an overview on the environmental control and what we've gained from international partners. Lima is a municipality in my state where it's located Serra do Divisor, the National Park of Serra do Divisor. Lima, respecting the new Forest Code of Brazil, is a coffee producer without creating any problems for the environment. This is the first proof that I can give to you that we can generate jobs, we can heaten up the economy without destroying the forest. And what is the biggest bottleneck in my understanding? We should reduce bureaucracy, reduce red tape, and what I said during my campaign, speak less and act more, because a year from now we're going to be in the next COP talking about what? Talking about forest fires, talking about deforestation rates. Are we going to find the culprits? We need not to politicize what is the left, which is the environment, and the right, which is agribusiness. We need to look at people. 60% of my population lives in an income rate which is low. I cannot sleep soundly knowing that my people needs employment. We need to create opportunities. I can speak on behalf of my people of Acre. We are not in favor of deforestation. We don't have to take down one tree for agribusiness. We just have to cut red tape and do what we need to do. Speaking of forest fires, we talk a lot about the rural zones. We talk a lot about the forests. Let's take into consideration what Waldez said. We have a border line, which is huge, where we have Bolivia and Peru next to us, where we have situations where Brazil, and Elder just said it, we need land regularization so that we can have the rights to that and the responsibility for our lands. So what we need is, and I invite you to visit our state so that you can see the policies that we have over there, and we need to do more and speak less so that we don't waste more time, because after a pandemic like this, we need to think about a better future for our kids. Regarding the federative relationship, I would just like to make a comment. I understand that the message of President Lula in his speech puts us in the center of these discussions. The federative relationships goes through mutual respect, and I believe that the dialogue with the federal government will be a facilitator so that we can join efforts around the agenda that collectively we will build. It is important that we can establish this new pact. And there was an important speech by Mauro that is based on the truth. We are not here today to say that there are no forest fires in the Amazon. Denying the truth takes away any credibility that we may have in this discussion, but we cannot accept that the illegal fires in the Amazon place us as villains in the climate change. Fires in the Amazon are a reality, and that should call the planet to present with us the solution when the cycle of the fires ends and the beginning of a new cycle of solutions start. And I think President Lula has this capacity first of reactivating the national protagonism, of restarting the protagonism of Brazil. I think there should be a change in communication of the country that shouldn't be reinstating that there is fires in the Amazon. When we were said that there are fires in the Amazon, we shouldn't say there are fires in China and there are fires in the United States. When people say that there are fires in the Amazon, we should give solutions to those fires in the Amazon, presenting a new model of development that should conciliate the agribusiness, that should conciliate mining, and that should have in the standing forest an economic asset for the monetization of the forest or for agroeconomy. I think President Lula can build with us collectively the solution that goes through the Brazilian government and through the leadership of the Brazilian government and through the subnational states. Objectively, to answer your question about why the governors took the protagonism in this administration of President Bolsonaro, what is important to the world is the Amazon. That is why the governors took this protagonist role, because the world is not worried about the Caatingas from the northeast and the Pampas in the southeast, or the seacoast in the south and the southeast. The Amazon is going to remain important. And what happened in the last few years is that the governors started taking their role of being spokespeople of this important climate agenda, of this important economic agenda, of this low-carbon economy. This is our effort, communicating the truth. When the Brazilian press broadcasts fires in Argentina and China, they call it forest fires, they call it wildfires. And in Brazil, these are shown as illegal fires. These are called crime fires. And what we want is to be treated with respect for the economic importance that we have. We want to stop being threatened with embargoes. Without Brazil as a world player in food supply, the prices will double in the planet, We want to be respected by what we are and by the important environmental assets that we have in the Amazon region. I would like to draw the attention to a point. We have the big challenge in Brazil and in the Brazilian states, which is producing with this environmental balance. I would like to make a brief complaint. In the international community, we have had some complaints about Brazil. They complain about our fires. We have a very strict supervision policy, but it's not easy to do this control. Through a project called Focus on Fire in my state, every year we send teams to the most vulnerable municipalities. We train the communities on fire. The international community is still complaining, but they don't assist us. They have already deforested, they've already took the green out of their territory, and they now want to control the Brazilian territory, and they don't want to pay the bill. They don't want to help us with that. The consolidation of a carbon sale project to improve the emissions, to lower the emissions, is very difficult for the states. So we need to facilitate that. We also need the partnership with the Brazilian states. I just want to draw your attention to this because it hasn't been easy to consolidate those sales. Because of the time and the commitment of the governors, I'm going to pass the floor for the last question. Clarice Porto from Agência Estado. I would like to ask you, you have commented about the need of efforts from the state government and the federal government in strengthening monitoring and supervision of illegal deforestation. I would like to understand. Well, we are aware that most of the territory is in federal lands, but how much space is there in state territories to increase monitoring and supervision? And what is your perspective in increase of federal investment in monitoring and supervision? I believe that there is a commitment of subnational states towards their territory, and the supervisions are happening. If we compare INPE and the TER, the only state of Brazil that has shown increase in the last 3 months is Amazonas. And it is an exception, but because there is a pressure on the south of Amazonas that has advanced towards the forest. All of the other states were able to reduce their deforestation rates. The expectation that we had is to strengthen the supervision efforts added to the supervision efforts of IBAMA, ICMBio, the armed forces, and all the other efforts of the federal government. This is paramount for us to fight environmental illegal actions. The message from the government should also affirm this context so that there's no impression that we are living in an environment where the institutions agree with illegal actions.
Therefore, I believe, and President Lula has been affirming that very firmly, that his government will fight that. And except for the year of 2004, the rates have always decreased during Lula's administrations. So I understand that we are going to have a positive encounter of the federal government and the subnational states. Just to add Elder's response, in Mato Grosso, maybe we have, and it's recognized by many institutes, the most efficient mechanism to fight illegal deforestation in Brazil. We are able to detect in 48 hours any illegal deforestation, and immediately we are able to find the responsibles. And we have the best implementation of the CAR, the rural register, and we are finding everyone who is uncomplying to the legal requirements. When I took on in 2019, only 5% of the deforestation was considered illegal in the federal legislation. Last year, we got 38% of deforestation made in a legal way. So if it's legal, you must recognize that. And the statistics of the care is disclosing legal with illegal. If they are doing so, this is disrespecting the legislation itself and a disrespect towards those acting complying in a compliant way. So we have the most efficient technology of control, but the states must operate with the federal government to improve even more to combat not only the illegal environmental activities and other, but also other illegal activities that we have in our country. I'd like to thank